Hi, I'm Robben Ford, and you're watching ForGuitarPlayersOnly.com.
Hi everyone, John Liebman here. You're watching ForGuitarPlayersOnly.com. We're coming to you today on location from the Ark in Ann Arbor, Michigan, with one of my favorite longtime artists, Mr. Robben Ford. How are you, Robben?
Hey, good. Glad to be here.
It's so nice to meet you in person. I've been listening to your music for so long, and I almost don't know where to start with everything that you've done. You're from California, all the stuff you did with your brothers and with the Yellow Jackets and with Joni Mitchell and Tom Scott and the LA Express and Miles Davis and all.
Formative.
Yeah, I bet. Well, tell me, I want to work up to the current tour, the new record, and some other stuff, but tell me about the beginning. I know you had a band with your brothers, which you named for your father, which I always thought was a very beautiful thing to do.
Yeah.
But tell me about your initial exposure to music and how you became a guitar player.
Well, my family, everybody loved music. Both my parents were musicians. My father professional as a young man, very young man. But and my mother never professional really, but she had a nice voice and played the piano. And my father had a cool voice and played acoustic guitar. And so there was a lot of music around the house, and all of us gravitated towards an instrument. I first gravitated toward the saxophone, and then moved to the guitar about 3 years later. Kept the saxophone up, but the guitar really became obviously the better choice for me. And my older brother Patrick was already playing drums, and younger brother Mark started playing blues harmonica, and the Paul Butterfield Blues Band was our favorite band, and so we were basically trying to do that, that Chicago blues thing, but with that integrated band, Had I heard Muddy Waters at that time, I don't know that I would have gotten it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It kind of required, I think, for someone like myself, for us, to have white guys in the band up front. You could identify a little bit better. And but the rhythm section was so strong. It wouldn't have been the same. Without Sam Lay and the other guys. So we wanted to be that. We wanted to do that, and from there, just a love of music. Over the years, I really wanted to find out more and more about jazz. And so jazz and blues was kind of my thing. As an instrumentalist, I was never a rock guitar player, as a young man. And so I didn't really know how to broaden my musical world, or even necessarily want to, until I joined Joni Mitchell, the LA Express, and those guys just opened me up to, all kinds of music.
You were with her for a couple of years, weren't you?
Yeah, 74, 5, 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's so many things I could ask you with career highlights, but Yellow Jackets. I have another site called ForBassPlayersOnly.com. So I've gotten to know Jimmy Haslip pretty well. I've interviewed him a few times, and I've interviewed a couple of your bass players, Travis Carlton and Brian Allen. So I feel like I know you already. But there's one period, I know it was a short period, but I've just got to ask you about Miles Davis. Tell me, that was only about 6 months or so, but tell me about that experience. Start with the phone call.
Well, yes, it was Jimmy Haslip indeed, and you probably know this from Jim. I don't know. But Jim was the one who actually called me to say that Miles Davis was, quote, looking for me,
Actually, I didn't know that.
Yeah. He was making the 2-2 album. Mike Stern had left. And Tommy LaPuma was the producer of the 2-2 record, and Miles asked Tommy if he had any idea for a guitar player. And Tommy had produced the Yellow Jackets, indeed. So he recommended me, played him some recordings. He said, I'll take him. So Tommy called Jimmy Haslip, the bassist for the Yellow Jackets, for my number. And Jimmy said, you got to let me call Robben, So Jimmy calls me and says, hey, Rob, Miles is looking for you, like that. I'm like, what? It was just such a shock. And he gave me Tommy LaPuma's number. I called Tommy. Tommy said, so you want to do it? I said, yeah.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, I think Miles is over at the studio. I'll call him and I'll have him call you. I'm like, holy mackerel. So 3 days went by, no phone call. Finally, it was him. My wife answered the phone and said, hey, Robben, it's Miles Davis. She said, I just turned beet red. And so he just goes, Robben, what you doing out there? You know, I go, oh, nothing, you know. And he goes, well, you want to play with me? And I said, yeah. And he goes, okay, here's Jim. And he gave me his tour manager, and that was it. 10 days later, I was on a red-eye flight to Washington, D.C., played my first show, meeting the band in the lobby, and it was a co-bill with B.B. King.
Who was in Miles's band at that time that you played with?
Well, his nephew, Vincent Wilburn, was on drums. Felton Cruz, bassist from Chicago. Keyboard player was Robert Irving. All three of those guys were from Chicago.
Robert Irving III, right?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
And Adam Holtzman, keyboard player.
Right. I remember that generation.
Mm-hmm. And Bob Berg on tenor saxophone. And Stevie Thornton on percussion, and Marilyn Mazur, some name like that. I never felt like I even had it right then. Marilyn Mazur, I think, a percussionist woman from, she was from Holland.
Wow. That is it's got to be an incredible experience, unforgettable experience, having played with Miles.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was the seminal experience of my life. I wouldn't say that I enjoyed it as much as, like working with Joni Mitchell, that 2-year period. I learned so much during that 2 years. It was just wonderful, and I was, around wonderful people making wonderful music that I'd never made before. Miles Davis was sort of like a confirmation, like it was like knighthood or something. I joined the round table when I joined Miles Davis, so it was like, it made me, it gave me a confidence boost, and I was fairly confident already, but I was 35 and 33, 34, right in there. And, but, and he loved my playing, and he let me know it in no uncertain terms.
So that must have been early 80s, right?
86.
Oh, really? That? Okay.
85, 86.
Because I saw him with Schofield and Daryl Jones and Al Foster. I guess that was a little earlier.
It would have been probably 83.
A little later, probably 85, I think, down in Florida. And
I
then,
don't think so.
No?
I don't think so. Possible.
Oh, possible.
Possible, certainly possible.
Yeah. Well, I didn't come to argue with you about when I saw Miles, so that's not important. I did see him about a month before he died, though, in Detroit on Shane Park with Foley and Kenny Garrett, and wow. And I love the stuff you did with the Yellow Jackets. I think a lot of people, they were so prolific for so long that a lot of people may not even realize that the early days, Imperial Strut, that's you. Those early days with Jimmy Haslip.
Yeah. I'd rather talk about more current things now.
No, I just mentioned that just because, Well, tell me, you're on tour. You've got a new record coming out. Tell me what's going on and tell the people what you'd like them to know.
Well, I've moved to Nashville, and which has been a wonderful, was a great idea. It's the smartest decision I've made in many, many years, honestly, because it's just an incredibly rich and supportive musical community. I can't say enough about how it's just a perfect fit, surprisingly. And so my group, which you're seeing tonight, are all living in Nashville. The drummer is currently, he actually lives in Memphis. He's not our usual drummer, who does indeed live in Nashville, but he's great. But we cut the record in Nashville with this very group, and
what's the record called?
Record's called Purple House. That's the name of the studio where we recorded, and the record comes out the end of October. It's going to be a little while, and we will start touring it in Europe end of October. And so this is something that it's a very unique record for me, very different record. and I'm excited about that. I really just have a ball with this group. This is a new group for me. It's only about a year old, and we've done very little touring actually during that year because of making a record for one thing, and
Well, we're so happy that Michigan is part of that tour.
yeah. Well, I wish we had the record with us, but not quite yet.
So you have to come back.
Oh, certainly. And so this is a wonderful thing, very happy about. But also, the move to Nashville was largely, I would say, so that I could get off the road in the coming years, do less of it, and have an environment where I'm enriched, and where I can do productive and different things. I like recording. I'm producing records now. I like writing. I like playing with other talent where it's not like we have to get married, like a band.
Yeah.
It's like you have your experience together doing whatever it is you do, and you move on. So just a much more open kind of musical life with my feet on the ground. That's why I moved to Nashville, and it's working out really wonderfully.
And
A lot less touring in my future.
And I see it growing, and a lot of people moving to Nashville from LA and from everywhere else. So it's
Amazing. All over the world, people are coming.
Tell me very briefly about your gear.
Well, I'm using the same amp that I've used since 1983, which is the Dumble Overdrive Special. And I'm currently playing primarily Les Pauls, the Les Paul that people think of, but I also have a 53 with P90s in it and a trapeze bridge. So that's a little less traditional. People almost shy away from them other than just to own them because they're single coil pickups, which can be noisy. People don't like that so much. And also the bridge and tailpiece are kind of funky. It's not as easy to play as the traditional Les Paul. So, but I have one of those guitars, which I absolutely love, and I've got a 54 conversion, which it's an old guitar, old parts, but I turned it into a humbucking pickup guitar with a stop tailpiece and a traditional Les Paul bridge. And it has actual, real 50s PAFs in it, and it just sounds fantastic. So the Les Paul has really been my thing lately. I mean, I would like to just travel with one Les Paul, with humbucking pickups, and I'm almost there.
Yeah. Did I see that you're a Seymour Duncan artist also?
I'm not a Seymour Duncan artist per se. Years ago, I used Seymour's pickups in the Robben Ford Fender model, the Esprit. I used Seymour's pickups, and he makes great pickups. I had a couple of his pickups in my. I had a 63 SG that were really nice, but I no longer have that guitar. So, I'm really vintage.
Yeah, it sounds like it. What kind of strings do you use?
I use Diodario 10 through 46.
Okay.
Heavy gauge pick, traditional kind of turtle shell, triangular heavy gauge pick, and that's about it.
Be sure to let us know when the record comes out, and we will let all these people know.
Okay.
I do have one more question for you.
Sure.
What would you be, if you can imagine, if you were not a guitar player? Something outside of music.
Something outside of music?
Yeah.
I probably would have gotten into I practice meditation. I'm Buddhist, spiritual tradition, and I like yoga. And I never got into martial arts because I wanted to protect my stuff.
Yeah.
I think I would have kind of gone that way. Maybe taught it. You know what I mean? Like get good enough so that you could teach and make a living at it. That would kind of be my bent. I like to think that I would have potential other artistic abilities, but I can't draw for nothing. So I couldn't paint. I love art. What can I say? And beyond that, I like the study of spiritual traditions and the yoga of your body. We have so much potential as human beings. As everybody knows, we use like 8% of our brain. Come on, man. That's ridiculous. Right. You actually can use the whole thing. Wow. It's been done. Wow. So that interests me.
I
And,
think maybe you opened it up for a follow-up interview. Maybe we'll get together
Okay,
again and do
well,
it. Well, congratulations on everything.
Might have 9% going next time.
Hey, that's better than 8. We'll watch for the new record. On location from the
Thank you.
Ark in Ann Arbor, Michigan, with one of my guitar heroes, music heroes, Robben Ford. I'm John Liebman. You're watching ForGuitarPlayersOnly.com.
Thank you.